really what can be learned. I would like to, I will give the floor to Dr. Deborah Yerk to describe openings for STEM programs at Walter Reed.
Thank you, Corey. My name is Deze Ekwatu. I'm not Dr. Yerk today. Dr. Yerk is my boss. It's okay. She's the Director of Science Education Fellowship Programs at Walter Reed. I work under her and I work with a lot of the programs. And what I'm going to do today is try to quickly go over what Walter Reed's about, because a lot of people they've heard of us, but they don't know about our Army research side. And then I'm going to go through some pathways that you can go with or work with Walter Reed, and where you can participate in our research and help broaden and enrich your career. So if you could just move to the next slide. So just a quick rundown of some of Walter Reed's missions, or we have four main missions that we really focus on. We started in really fighting infectious diseases, or we really were rooted in malaria research, but we've broadened that to other things like multi-drug resistance. Most recently, SARS-CoV, as much people know, there's been a big impact in our world, and we're really focused on the research and being on the forefront of the research for that. We're really interested in promoting brain health. We do a lot of research on sleep, neuroprotection, combat stress for our armies and PTSD, especially. And we're really interested in enabling product development. But something that a lot of people don't know about Walter Reed is that we are also really interested in expanding the STEM workforce. That's one of our overall overarching goals, is to do that. And one of the reasons we're really interested in that is because we recognize that there's a substandard education in the US, considering in regarding to STEM opportunities. And this is leading to workers' crisis in STEM. And particularly we see that the access of quality STEM opportunities are limited for especially underserved populations, specifically unrepresented minorities. So a major goal that we do in our research is to try to find better ways for underrepresented groups to have access to opportunities and to seek STEM careers, which we do through our science education fellowship programs. So if you can go to the next slide. Yes, so to enable our better outcomes in our research, we have lots of areas where we research on. As you see here, etymology, bio production, clinical trials, research transition. We have many research centers, and we place our students all across the continuum of their careers in these research labs, so they can better learn basically more and gain on their research and hone their research skills, but also find ways that they contribute that better focus them in their career path. So we go to the next slide. So basically, if you were interested in working with Walter Reed or taking your gap year with us, there's three main paths you can take. One is the ORISE Fellowship, which is our Oak Ridge Institute of, I always forget the acronym, Oak Ridge Institute of Science and Education Fellowships. The second is our Army Education Outreach Fellowships, or OEOP. And our third is a new one, the Bridge Research Mentoring Program, otherwise known as BRAMP, which I'll talk about later. And basically, this is a full continuum of our opportunities that we range for all ages and all experience levels. So if you go to the next slide. Thank you. Sorry, there we go. My camera messed up. OSRISE Fellowships, just to give you a quick overview, it's one of our primary ways that fellows join research. And it's really a good opportunity to go through, because it's one of our longest eligibilities after graduation. You can go into an ORISE fellowship up to 5 years after graduating. It's also one of our longest fellowship opportunities because they last up to 5 years in length with an annual renewal. You will have one of the broadest and most research opportunities or ways to participate in our research. So almost all of our STEM centers and branches have ORISE opportunities. It's very flexible, which a lot of our students like, because it offers part-time and full-time opportunities to help students with their changing schedules. And another thing about ORISE, which is very unique to our other fellowships that I'll talk today. It's one of the few that allows participation by foreign nationals in our in our research laboratories, because a lot of our stuff requires that you be U.S. citizenship, but this is an avenue that if you're not a U.S. citizen, you can be funded by and work in rare research labs. And I want to just stress, with most of our fellowships, this one is like a very good like picture of like how far these fellowships can really help you in your careers. So even though I'm talking to you about basically post-bac, we offer undergraduate, post-bac, graduate positions, postdoctoral, and faculty. So you can actually work with rare at any stage of your STEM career pathway. So if you don't think that's something you want to do now, you can always do it later. So another fellowship opportunity we have is the U.S. Army Educational Outreach Program. And this was really created to create more quality STEM experience for all, and to expand diversity and equity and inclusion in our science workforce. So there's 3 opportunities in which you can basically interact with those. One is our Gains in Education and Mathematics and Science program with this GEMS, where you'll work as a near-peer mentor, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It's more of a like not research one, it's more of a mentoring fellowship. I know most of this is about post-bacs, but I just want to also know that we also do like summer research mentor stuff where if you're an undergrad, you can work in the laboratory, and we do that up to the last year. And we also have fellowships for post-bacs, masters, doctoral students, graduate students as well. So the next slide. So just to give you a quick background about our GEMS program, it's basically something that we originated for a STEM program for DEI, and it's to expand STEM experiential learning. It's been funded by the AEOP, and basically what we do and the way you can participate is you can become a near-peer mentor, which helps us with our teaching and mentoring style, our mentoring part of our program. So we have a summer and an in-class version of this. So basically what you could do, and you would get a stipend to be able to do and form like academic, some academic hands-on inquiry-based modules for students that come into the lab or come into rare laboratories. And we basically would come and help teach them and mentor them in these lessons, and you would be working with our science education group to do that. So that's when I say the GEMS fellowship, that's what I mean. If you go to the next slide, I go more into what a near-peer mentor is, and I kind of explain it really quick there. But one thing I wanted to say about near-peer mentorship and why, even though people talk about the research stuff and why people are like, oh, it's just mentoring, but it's really important because you get this hands-on experience and you're able to mentor other students about what science is about and show the skills and see people who are in a stage before you. You have the opportunity to go to a role model for students. It's an excellent stepping stone for STEM careers, and it's a nice thing to put on your resume when you're going for graduate medical school applications, because to be a good scientist, you also need to be a good mentor. So I just want to like put it out there that this is a good opportunity for students who may be interested in that. So to our next slide. So what I work on, and I was specifically hired to rare to work on, is our new BRAM dual fellowship. So like I said, it's our Bridge Research Mentoring Program. And this is a new fellowship that is specifically funded by the National Defense Education Program. And we specifically have it to support HBCU students, particularly seniors and postbaccalaureate fellows. So what we do with this program, we carefully match recently graduated or seniors in HBCU institutions, students from those institutions, with a rare faculty mentor, and they will then conduct research in our labs. It's a 12-month, so it's one of our longer fellowships. It's a 12-month fellowship, and you'll get selected to work in that selected mentors laboratory, and you get a 42,000 stipend per annum. So it actually compensates very well. And at the end of the internship, which is the unique part of this internship, we basically have a mentoring element. So at the end of your internship for the last summer or the last 3 months, you will then work with a what we call advanced STEM graduate students or older STEM students who have our GEM students have been in our mentoring program, come work in a lab, because we give them an internship opportunity to work in the lab, and you will be their mentor and you will supervise them and help them and basically transmit the skills you've learned in lab after being trained, and then take those skills and be able to pass it on to a younger student. So in this unique opportunity, you'll be able to be a fellow who is also both a mentee and a mentor. So this is why we call it the bridge, because it's a unique opportunity where you could do get both sides of that mentoring aspect. So many people might be wondering, how do you apply or how do you learn information about that? Oh, no, you're good. Next slide. How you may learn information about that. Like everything with the government's a big entity, and we have many ways to find information, but sometimes the information is not the easiest to find. So for ORISE, if you're really interested, you can log on to a website called Zintellect. Select your academic level, whether it's undergrad, postbac, or postbachelor's, and type in, this is key, the keyword MRMC where, because if you don't, you'll be going through all the DoD programs, and it'll be really difficult. Another way to do this is also go to our ORISE directly, go to select internships, fellowships, recent graduates and internships and internship and fellowships. And this is important on the recent because they, for some reason, also put the word graduate, which means post PhD level. And so people get confused by that. And then type that keyword MRMC rare, and that will help you find the research fellowships that are specifically to the rare campus. For AEOP, just go to our website, USAEOP, or you can put it in Google, it'll come out. Select students on the top, and then you'll find fellowship and internships, and you click that. On the bottom of there, there'll be a prompt for you to email us. The email is this, the AOP apprenticeships at RIT.edu, but you can also see it on the link. There's also a phone number to call. If you're interested in being a near-peer mentor, I suggest that you email me directly. We have our own internal one because GEMS and all these AOP, they have many sectors in which we work in. So I suggest that you do that. And then also lastly, for the BRAMP, if you're interested, you have to be nominated by your institution. So talk to your Office of Undergraduate Research. I think it's Mr. Waters, Thomas Waters would be the guy you would talk to, and he'll send us your CV and your unofficial transcripts. And yeah, and then we'll be in contact with you to send, sorry, I think I'm over my time. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, but you'll be in touch to to make an interview with you, and then we'll set you up because we have more limited positions for that. So that's one way you can get in contact. So with that, I am done. We have a lot of stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, so in the interest of time, yes, we do have to move forward, but yes, we can also share all that information with our participants. So at this point, I'd like to invite Dr. Tamara Loden. If you have any slides yourself, I can stop sharing so you can share. Otherwise, I will leave this link up with a QR code to the Schaufeld program.
Yeah, that's perfect, Corey. Actually, I don't have any slides. Thanks for inviting us to speak here. This seems like an amazing program. So we have a relatively smaller and newer program at Johns Hopkins. And I think Dr. Robinson will tell you about a slightly larger similar program that they have also at Johns Hopkins. So our program is called the Schaufeld Scholars Program. And it's part of a program at Johns Hopkins called the Schaufeld Program for Prostate Cancer in Black Men. And as part of that, we have an educational component, which is the Scholars Program, which I'll tell you a lot more in detail about, a research program, which funds some research specifically around prostate cancer health disparities. And then we have a community outreach component as well, which raises awareness about prostate cancer screening in the community around Johns Hopkins in Baltimore and also in Washington, D.C. So as you can tell, our program is very prostate cancer focused. It's a donor sponsored program from a donor who had an interest in this, in prostate cancer research in particular. And we have currently 5 scholars a year in this program. We're just starting, we're really just into our first year of the program. And these scholars are post-baccalaureate scholars that mostly have come from HBCUs around the country. And we embed them in prostate cancer focused labs at Johns Hopkins to do 1 to 2 years of research with a stipend as well. I think our stipend is about $38,000 a year, something like that. And in addition to their research projects, they have a number of other activities that we engage them in, including regular mentorship sessions. I like this term near peer mentorship, because we do something very similar that Dr. Maynard helped us organize with members of the DPAC group at Hopkins, for example, PhD students or postdoctoral students who come and have weekly mentoring sessions with our Schaufeld Scholar students. We typically do this, sponsor a lunch, and we have them come down and have a very informal luncheon with our scholars, sort of talking about their journey and their career path and giving them advice on their own journey. In addition, because the Schaufeld Scholars Program actually currently has a number of students interested in applying to medical school, we do something very similar in terms of mentoring or near peer mentoring with medical residents who are at Johns Hopkins, and also some medical faculty. We've even introduced them to additional career paths, in medicine, such as nurse practitioners. So we've had some nurse practitioners come speak about how they chose that particular path. And then we have had a number of mentorship sessions around applying to medical school specifically, even with the associate dean of med school admissions at Hopkins talking to our students. Some of the leaders in the financial aid office have come to talk or are going to come to talk. So those are the kind of mentorship sessions that we do, again, weekly lunches. And our students who are interested in applying to medical school are all enrolled in the Kaplan MCAT preparatory program, which is a pretty in-depth review prior to the MCAT. It lasts several months, actually. And they do this with the DDP scholars who are in Dr. Robinson's program. So we sort of stole that from them. So that's been a very useful adjunct program that we have. And then finally, I guess one thing that's a little bit different from the DDP program is our scholars also are engaged in some of the community outreach or community engagement activities that we have as part of the Schaufeld program. So they go weekly to, for example, the Northeast Market, which is a market near Johns Hopkins, where we have a table distributing information to folks visiting the market about prostate cancer and prostate cancer screening, and just raising awareness. And they're have been pioneering some additional programs that we may take to churches and some other locations in the community to talk about prostate cancer as well. So our students are involved in that too. And then finally, we set them up with shadowing opportunities for those who are interested in medical school at the hospital. So we have a number of physicians who have our students come shadow them while they're in clinic or attending in the hospital, for example. So it's really sort of a pre-graduate and then also pre-medical school program to give an extra 2 years of research and sort of intensive mentoring experiences to students interested in those career paths. And I think for more information, the QR code is helpful and will lead to the website. As you'll see, we're a much newer program, so we have much less information available on the web, but our contact information is there, and feel free to contact me if you have any additional questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. One question I would like to ask before we move on is, what is like the application cycle? So when do applications open and when is the deadline?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we run on a similar cycle to Dr. Robinson's DDP program. In fact, we tried to sort of combine efforts with them last year. I think we did get separate applications as well, and those were in December and January, I believe. And so we put out a call for applications at that time. and sort of do an email blast to a number of different schools across the country. But if people should just contact me directly, I guess, if they want additional information before that.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we'll move forward. Dr. Murray, I'm not sure if you have your own slides that you would like to share, or I can
No
leave
no
this here.
slides.
Okay,
That's fine.
okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Murray, Deborah Murray from Baylor College of Medicine here in Houston, Texas. We are, to orient you, we're in the world's largest medical center, the Texas Medical Center. We're across the street from Rice University as our way to kind of understand where we're located. We're not part of the Baylor University, which is in Waco, that has a football team, a basketball team they're famous for that we get asked about all the time. That's not us. So you have to go ahead and break it down. Anyway, first I'll tell you about two programs that are at Baylor, and then we'll talk about mine. So we do have a prep as well. It's in the graduate school, and that is dedicated to all disciplines versus what you'll hear about for mine. And then there is the TPP program, which is the Transform Postbaccalaureate Pre-Medical Scholar Program. And that is geared toward those who are interested in getting a medical degree. And so my program is the Human Genome Sequencing Center Pre-Graduate Education Training Program, PGET, PGET. It is a year-long program. You are able to remain for an additional year, but you have to reapply. And we have several activities that we do that are, I think, extremely helpful in assisting students interested in a research career. Our goal is to increase underrepresentation in the PhD programs in genetics and genomics. Right now, we have about 66% of our program participants who enter into graduate programs. And currently, we have a 98% retention rate in those graduate programs, with 27 who have been awarded their PhDs and 18 who are in the pipeline. For application purposes, we kind of take all disciplines because, if you're interested in genetics and genomics, you can have a math background or physics background. And so it just depends on if we have someone doing research that would be able to train you. So 3.4 GPA and above is what we are looking for. However, if it is lower, then contact me directly and we'll do that by case basis. So we have courses that we offer, a molecular cell biology course that takes place during the fall, in the spring, a research design course, and the postbacs take, and this is all postbacs at Baylor, they take the RCR course offered for postdocs, which is more seminar in nature and occurs in the spring. So that is easily fitted into our schedule. For the program specifically, we have a bioinformatics boot camp because that's our concentration, is to at least introduce people to bioinformatics and that training. You don't have to have any computational background coming into it. We just kind of give you enough flavor so that you pursue on your own. But it has been fruitful for us because after introducing it, we've had several who in their graduate programs either totally select bioinformatics. So right now we have 3 who received a PhD in bioinformatics, but the majority of our participants use some form of bioinformatics training in their research. We also now offer biocuration, and we have weekly meetings. We meet every week, and we'll either do a journal club or some professional development topics like imposter syndrome, stereotype threat, and we do ethics in medical genetics as well. And we do try to get in some writing, and we do research papers where you focus on your research, but it gives us an opportunity to help in the writing process. And you must give a presentation on your topics at the end of the year. And we do other activities, outside activities. This Postbacs develop their own outreach activities, and these are carried out in area high schools, and they really have a lot of fun with it, since they are able to put it together as they envision, and being able to share their science with the high school students and talk about college as well. But they must have a viable training in some science topic in order to capture the attention of the students. And we do DNA Day, and so they participate in that. I think they've done the Jeopardy game. They created these kind of things. And unfortunately for them, they have to help me whenever I have things. This evening we have an outreach we're doing for Southern University. So the Postbacs will have their own breakout room and talk to undergraduates on their campus about why they are interested in their science, how they got involved, because it helps. Because we have, I would say, and I need to maybe do a count, but maybe at least half of the students who apply to my postbac program hadn't heard about research by the time they're graduating from college. And so they missed out on having those experiences. So that is probably the student that we interest the most. I'll put information in the chat, but I think Janelle, who is a BCM grad, she's putting information in there for me, so that all may have been taken care of. And if you need any more or have more questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Now, and we will move to Dr. Robinson to tell us more about the DDP program. And you do have slides, so I will stop sharing.
Okay. All right. You see that okay?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to come and present. I wanted to start off and give a little bit of context for the DDP. So it's our post-bac portion of what for a big pathway program, which we call the Johns Hopkins Initiative for Careers in Science and Medicine, and the CSM for short. The CSM includes actually 5 different programs. We have a 1-week final science camp for 5th graders. It's a science exposure opportunity, largely for students from the Baltimore City area. We have 2 high school programs. The summer academic research experience is actually one we founded out of my lab now almost 15 years ago. And then BRBT is a little bit younger, and it actually is housed out of the Homewood campus. I'm located at the medical school at Hopkins. And so these are designed to provide opportunities for high schoolers, really with a pretty significant educational fortification component, with the idea of really helping scholars, build all the hardcore accomplishments that they're going to need in order to be successes in the next phases of their career. We also have a portion of what's known as the summer internship program at Hopkins. That's a big umbrella program that has many different components to it. We have a CSM component of the summer internship program, and that's a 10-week summer research experience. Oh, and I should point out that the high school SARE program is 8 weeks in the summer. And then, of course, what we're talking about today is the Doctoral Diversity program, which is for Postbaccalaureate scholars. And to date, the whole CSM initiative has had 580 scholars come through, some through multiple components, and we've even had some that have come through the high school, then our undergrad, and then return for the postbac portion of that. So what is the DDP and how is it structured? So the DDP is the acronym or the nickname we give it. The goal of it is to prepare scholars to be ready to enter medical and or graduate school. It's to expose scholars to STEM professionals. Notice we purposely put a double M on STEM, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and the medical sciences or medical health professions. And it's to help scholars, give them an opportunity to develop a serious list of accomplishments, such as co-authoring or first authoring papers. Almost 100% of DDP scholars have co-authored papers and first authored, and many have done so many times over, which is pretty cool and neat to see. The program is a 2-year research intensive effort. It's a mentored research. You're in a program where you're in a research lab, working typically with a grad student, postdoc, maybe running your own project totally independently. In addition, we have weekly, or well, we have monthly, I should say, and sometimes bi-weekly coffee hours. This is where with Dr. Dieter Cruz, who's my partner in running this program, we meet with the scholars. It's a big peer mentoring opportunity as well, where everybody shares their experiences. In addition, scholars are open to be able to take shadow or participate in medical shadowing experiences if they're really focused on medical school. They have the full access to full Kaplan preparation that includes all the various phases, the initial, so that you get the full meal deal that Kaplan can offer. In addition, there's a lunch and learn seminar series in the summer times where all the CSM scholars come together and they get to listen to the life and career story of professionals across a wide range of STEM with the double M career paths. And these end up becoming really heartfelt, heartwarming presentations. I don't miss one of them because they're fantastic. We have largely faculty from within Hopkins, but we also bring in people who are scientists in pharmaceutical companies who are maybe gone into tech domains, so that the scholars can kind of get a fairly broad flavor of what career opportunities are out there. Scholars come from all across the US territories and tribes, and we've had scholars come from every component. And then it may or may not have been clear on the slide above. I didn't really talk about that, but another criteria is that the whole CSM initiative is really focused on scholars who are coming from economically under-resourced and education under-resourced backgrounds, most commonly first-generation college on the educational side of that. And I can explain more of that if it's of interest. And typically we'll have about 5 to 8 scholars per date. We're at 46 as of this year overall, since we founded this back in 2015. And this kind of gives you a flavor of what the outcomes are. So 83% of our scholars have gone on to either medical school, MD, PhD, MD, MBA. They've gone all over the country, you name it, Harvard, Stanford, Hopkins, Baylor, Brown, on and on. A few have gone in and pursued master's degree programs, some cases Masters of Science. We've actually even had, we've had the MD, MBA, a couple that pursued an MBA combo with their MD degree. We had one that went in, became a Teach for America biology teacher out in LA, and I think that's sort of a cool paying it forward type of an outcome, and a couple become research scientists as well. So it kind of gives you a flavor of what our scholars end up doing, and they do crush it. They're incredible young people who are really going to change the world, and we're excited to be a part of their journey in that process. I'd be happy to take any questions. I can talk for days, as many may know, about the whole CSM initiative, but I'll pause there.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Robinson. So I'll go back to sharing slideshow. Let's see.
And more than happy for you to reach out to me if you have any questions. Don't hesitate. Oh, and one other last question before I forget. Sorry about that. The question did come up about when applications are opened. They did open as of yesterday, and applications are due by February 15th. Thanks.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Robinson. I'll open up the floor for Chris, and I will also fill in for describing the Postbac Research Education Program.
Yeah, so I'll keep, I guess, my part pretty brief to make sure we have time for questions at the end. So I am, I'm actually a product of one of these post-baccalaureate programs that you guys are interested in potentially looking at after you finish your bachelor's degree, where I was actually in the first cohort for the prep program at Johns Hopkins, where I wanted to do a postbac because I was sort of switching fields with my with my research focus going from undergrad to college, where I did my undergrad degree at a small liberal arts school. It's actually in Houston, pretty close to Baylor, so the University of St. Thomas, where we actually didn't even really have an engineering department. But then kind of through this random part-time job that I had, I found out that tissue engineering was kind of like a thing and wanted to really get into that, but didn't quite have the math and physics backgrounds that a lot of those graduate programs would really looking for. So I ended up applying to a bunch of bioengineering PhD programs my first time out. I got no interviews and ended up being connected to Kathy or Dr. Wilson, who was kind of getting this prep program up and running. So I was able to apply successfully to this program, where I think it was really helpful because they give you a lot more than what you would get just maybe working in a lab, or just if you wanted to go into industry or do something kind of more traditional with the gap year, where they gave a lot of extra mentorship, where DPAC and all the great mentors that were involved in that group were very involved in the prep program as well, where I was given a lot of guidance in terms of how to navigate even looking for PhD programs, doing some mock interviews, and even now I'm actually still using some of the advice that I was given way back then, where Dr. Williams or Diona, I think Corey is actually in her lab right now. She told me about these great opportunities, like and the NIH has this loan repayment program, because usually a lot of people coming through these these prep scholar type programs tend to also have some financial burdens from their undergrad. So I'm actually currently applying to this program and still kind of benefiting from a lot of the mentorship that I got while I was at Hopkins with a bunch of great people. And also kind of more with the structure of these programs, a lot of them will also provide, at least at the time, they were providing some extra resources for getting ready for the GRE. I know a lot of PhD programs in the sciences are de-emphasizing or outright getting rid of the GRE, but if some of those programs still do require it or like to see it, these types of programs can help you take practice tests and really get your scores up, and just really giving you a well-rounded educational experience where you can really be a competitive applicant for that next round of the PhD admission cycles, and then also gaining a lot of soft skills just through the intensive research that you're doing, where you can really hit the ground running once you're actually in your in your doctoral program.
Okay, so I can add in too. So there are a couple of things that are very, very similar to a lot of other programs that have been described. So prep, we're talking about the Hopkins prep, but there are prep programs all across the nation. And I will skip some of the things just in the interest of time and just like give a very abridged version. But of course, you have your research experience where you're in a mentored lab. You have like sort of a mini thesis where it sort of structures you to what your similar day-to-day life as a PhD student will be. So it puts you in connection and community with other faculty members to discuss your project and to get new scientific ideas, which will be very realistic to like graduate training as well. There are monthly chalk talks to get used to describing your research orally, as well as there are means to prepare you for MCATs for people interested in MD PhDs. There are resources available to go to a conference of one choice, and there's the availability to take one graduate level course during your tenure within the prep program. One thing I very quickly want to highlight in time, so we have time for discussion, is that now the program also has more structure to our near peer mentoring. So peer mentors were always a vital part of the prep program. So you have people that are current graduate students or postdoctoral fellows that you will go to for advice or just to learn more about your scientific journey and to build community. But now the near peer mentors, we also lead monthly workshops to discuss different avenues that come up oftentimes during the graduate experience. So just identifying your own individual goals and values, discussions of financial health, stress management, to discuss imposter syndrome, project management, mental health, self-advocacy, like going through and navigating difficult conversations, and owning your own identity are some of the topics that are happening this year. And most of the other things were hit, but all other information can be found on the website through the QR code, which we will also provide this information at the end of the presentation. And I'll put my contact information in there as well for any participants. At this time, though, I'd like to open the floor for any questions that anyone has. And if not, I can start the discussion.
So there was a question about whether students would be able to present their research at national meetings. Can you speak a bit to that in general?
Okay, yeah, of course. So within the Hopkins Prep program, there is funding available for students to attend one national conference of their choice. So students will often discuss with their mentor what conference would be a best fit. And it's the opportunity to talk about all of the great work that you've been doing. So oftentimes, during this tenure, people will go to a number of meetings where they meet contacts for different graduate programs, and that can also help build connections for the cycle as well, especially for individuals that are doing 2 years within the program. In addition to that, the prep program partners with the CMM graduate program, and prep scholars will go to, which is the cellular molecular medicine program. It's one of the larger graduate programs at Johns Hopkins. And the scholars will be there with the students to discuss research that the students are doing for their retreat as well. Let's see, Dr. Murray, I think you had a comment as well. No, I saw something in chat. Okay. I can speak a little bit too. I can open up the floor for questions. What do you think is the greatest advantage that that individuals gain from participating in the postbac programs? Like, would you say sort of the connections and community building, the scientific experience? What would you believe that the people have gained the most of from the tenure, in a postbac program?
That's an open floor question for anybody, or?
Yes.
I think all the above. Build opportunity to build a list of accomplishments that are highly tangible, and but then also a network that you're building. And it's not just it's a peer network, but also a longitudinal network that you will carry with you throughout your career. And one of the sayings or expressions by the DDP scholars that they coined, DDP for life.
Yeah, and I guess as an alum to one of these programs, I can definitely echo that. Really all the connections that I made while I was in the prep program are still very useful today, even kind of as I'm starting my postdoc, leg of my training, whether it's kind of what I'm working on in terms of my research, or even just, keeping in contact with a lot of these old mentors who are still giving me really helpful advice as I continue to work towards my ultimate goal of opening up my own lab. So yeah, these really do become lifelong kind of partnerships. Yeah.
And I'd like to add, students also become more confident in their ability to either do science, if you will, or how to approach the whole scientific enterprise, and having that awareness, being in the environment of the research intensive institutions kind of help them be prepared for what is to come.
I also want to add, because I always like to do the near peer aspect, but because I was also in a prep program, the one at University of Massachusetts Amherst, and that really introduced my my trajectory as well. But one of the most rewarding things for me too was also in those programs, I also met other students going in the same direction as I was. So I didn't really feel alone as much. So I had my mentors, but sometimes there's this like really magic of knowing there's people who are either the same level as you or slightly above you, and seeing those people move on and do it, you kind of like create this family, and like when you go through your struggles, someone to celebrate your successes, and also this way to like really kind of have this vulnerability where you can have this comfortable someone you can go to when you're insecure about something, and that sometimes can be hard to do with someone who might be like a professor or something. So I really appreciate having that in my post-bac program as well.
Yeah, I would just echo all the sentiments. I think that the community is really the one of the major advantages. You can get a job, as a lab tech for a couple of years, which a lot of people do, but that can be very isolating, I think, especially at that level, because it's universities are huge and it's hard to really find a group there. But this sort of provides you with a built-in group. And the students give each other amazing advice. I mean, I was just doing a session the other night where they were discussing, how to approach their mentor about getting additional time to, study for the MCAT or something. And so they were each sort of, piping up about how they had handled that situation.
Yeah, so such great advice. Okay, so there is another message within the chat. So do our panelists have any insights to the application process, like things to consider, what makes a very competitive applicant? So let's see, we can start where we just left off, start with Dr. Loden.
Yeah, so we're relatively newer, so we're sort of learning how to tweak our application process. We have been just asking for a letter of interest, sort of describing your career goals, why you think this program would be useful for you, as well as a transcript and a couple letters of recommendation. And what we're really evaluating is, did you take, rigorous science courses as an undergrad, or at least give us some indication that you'd be able to succeed in those kind of courses. Is there, do you sometimes do you have gaps, where this program could for sure help you out? Sometimes we see applicants who are so well qualified, it's questionable whether they need a program like this potentially. But I think just sort of communicating your career goals, having strong letters of recommendation, and looking like you would be a viable candidate with this additional 2 years of training for either grad school or med school applications. So we've gotten a ton of great applications actually. And then we do an interview with selected candidates after the admissions committee has gone through their applications.
Okay, whoever would like to go next, floor is open.
So I would highly recommend that you answer the questions that are asked. If it's a required field, it's usually indicated, but I don't put any of that on mine. I want you to answer every question that's asked. And because we're really looking for the opinion about bioinformatics, because people are afraid of computation. And I want to know, where do you stand? And so just answer that part. But the letter of recommendations has to come from college professors. I don't care where you, which discipline you get it from, music, fine, but no high school at all, okay? That's a pet peeve of mine. Yeah, ask your professors. Because one of the things we do is also work with them to determine who are the right professors when it's time to apply to graduate school. And, I'll tell them, don't ask Dr. So-and-so. It wasn't a glowing report on who you were, and it, contradicted the other information we were getting. So, things like that also make or break it.
I guess one piece of advice I can give for when you're writing your personal statements, whether it's for the postbac or eventually your PhD or MD programs or whatever else, don't be afraid to get actually personal about it, right? Like there's this kind of feeling that I know a lot of students have where they need to kind of put on airs as if they've always been perfect, but then you really can be real about your experience and then show how those experiences have shaped you and made you a more resilient applicant so you can really thrive in these programs. I think that can really make you stand out and shine.
And one thing I've noticed from successful applications is really showing that enthusiasm within your statements too for the research that you want to do, or just an enthusiasm to pursue science. And I think that showing and making that very personal to you and like why you want to do that science and how that enthusiasm has been fostered throughout time, and that you have ideas of things that you want to do going forward to meet that is another key thing. Okay, so we're almost at our hour mark now. Just want to open the floor for any of our participants if you have any questions. Please feel free.
I wanted to make a final plug for the mentoring program. So all the programs described here mention some aspect of mentorship, and that's not by accident. It's because mentorship is a key determinant in the people who tend to succeed and the people who tend to not. And one of the things about our program that's great is that you can get help with these kinds of questions. Which program should I be looking at? Which ones am I able to apply for? Having somebody to review your application, review your personal statements, give you feedback before you send it off. So if you're interested, again, I'll put my email in the chat. You can email me and I'll send you the form for you to complete. But it's a great opportunity to have people who have already gone through all the stages. Most of these persons are either already in grad school or they're already postdocs, and they have a lot of insight and experience on how to get through the process of applying to summer programs, postbac programs, grad school, med school, etc. So that's my final plug.
Okay, so if there are no other questions from our participants here, I would like to thank all of our panelists for taking the time today and describing all the great things each of your programs are doing. And for any participants, please feel free to reach out to any of us about these programs, or if there are any questions about the application process, the deadlines, please feel free to reach out. And thank you all.